God.
I know it keeps you regular, Jewel, but you'll find that if you have too much of it, your husbandly duties. Okay, wait. I'm sorry. We started.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. I'm just interested in the calling for you too. That's my buddy Patrick McCray. That's my buddy Alan Gallant.
Eat the soylent green.
Yes. We're here to review episode Dark Shadows episode 596, and no, I cannot keep a straight face anymore. I give up.
Well, that matches the rest of you.
Crooked face is more interesting anyway.
Yeah, narrated by Sarah David. Written by Sam Hall. Director is Sean Dua Sullivan. He's
Sean Dua Sullivan, like one of the few things.
Mystery of Sean Dua Sullivan.
Yeah,
we got a real Sean Dua Sullivan festival going on here.
Mm-hmm. This episode was chosen by my wife, who's conspicuous by her absence, but it's okay. This is a really interesting episode, actually. I like the fact that they're bringing Eve to life here. And they leave you in suspense at the beginning a bit. You know, they're not sure she made it, and lo and behold, she made it. What did you guys... There's so much here. I really love Sarah David's performance here, too. Really, really good. Adam is always underrated. Robert Rodan. Man, everybody clicks in this episode once again. What do you guys think? I'm sorry. I'm like... about the episode.
I think it was gooder. It was gooder than many.
Yeah.
It's a fine piece of television storytelling. It's really, I think, symbolic of Dark Shadows at its best at this time. This is all that pre-Clinton sort of story that to me is just a good course. This is Dark Shadows for me. You know, it's not the Maggie kidnapping and all of that. That's something really special. And yes, it is Dark Shadows. It's not really, it deviates from what the series would be statistically.
It's not as wild and woolly as this kind of stuff is. This stuff is not chewy. This stuff is, you can really chew on it.
And it has Barnabas essentially in the part of the heroic protagonist. Sort of. You know, sort of.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I thought it was interesting. I mean, at the beginning of this, just taking out of context, you get a nice view of all of the basement resurrection machine tech and all that sort of stuff. You know, the oscilloscope, all this cool stuff, and then you get, of course, the debut of Marie Wallace. You know, who has, you know, she gets a lot of, she didn't get a lot of dialogue, but she gets a lot of sort of interesting things to react to, and does well in doing it. So she has a really good time selling this character right from the beginning. You don't
and as always, it brings up a question I brought up many times. She's dressed very elaborately.
Yes.
Down to pantyhose.
Mm-hmm. Who did?
Dressed her.
I think it was Willie.
Maybe.
After he got over the horror of supposedly getting the body and all that sort of thing, he kind of
then how did Barnabas and Julia, and more importantly Adam, react before they, you know, had her, you know, bundled up?
Mm-hmm.
To Willie looking real proud, either looking very proud or very ashamed, as he stands next to her in, you know, full, you know, Howard Hughes era lingerie and the stockings and the black dress, and, you know, Barnabas saying, like, I thought we had agreed that green sweaters was the uniform for these types, you know.
Of course, Willie just said, but Barnabas, after I styled her hair, I had to go further.
I couldn't stop myself. I got my momentum going. It reminded me of my days with Jason. You know, Barnabas, Jason would pass out all the time. and it was only the cling of pantyhose that really would bring him back.
That and styling his hair.
And styling his hair. It was.
He used to wear a teased pompadour before we moved to Collinsport.
I think too, it really gives you the dress doesn't necessarily suggest anything about her character either. So when you're
no, it suggests things about the character of the person who put it on her when she was dead.
Yes, it does. But when you're hearing Professor Stokes talk about, did you complete the experiment? And he wants to have this conversation with Barnabas, and they have it in the drawing room with Dr. Julia Hoffman. He's explained to her. He goes, "This is not the first time this woman's, been alive. You got to understand, there's something else going on here." And he's, explaining it to him, and it's like, oh shit, he's right. By the end of this, you're figuring out, okay, he's right. But when they put that outfit on her, I do think it's a bit deceiving. They do put her in a sexy outfit to sort of, throw the audience, hey, this is a very beautiful woman. There's nothing to fear here about this very beautiful woman. When it's like, yeah, there is.
Yeah, and the accoutrements are very sort of pre-code horror Hollywood. The woman in either something diaphanous and white or in something flowing in black, and of course, the character of the person that's wearing the black. So, and that's the whole thing that they're kind of setting up there. June Pulio or whoever it is that pulled the costume is probably looking at Universal horror films, and which Dan talks about on a daily basis when he's talking about story changes and whatever.
I like the line where she says, how did I die? And they said, well, we don't want to get into that. And then she says, well, was I alone with Danny Thomas? And they say no, and she's like, okay, well then everything else is fine.
Don't worry about it.
It's fine. Death by Danny is make do for Daddy.
It was not a St. Jude's experience. Don't worry.
Joel, you know much about the Danny Thomas predilections?
No, I don't.
Well, then we're not telling you.
You
really don't want to know.
It's another time, right? Yes.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Like that golf ball with Forrest Tucker. But different.
Well, here's the thing. We are going to come to find out that this woman is an evil entity from the past, that she destroyed village. No village is safe with this woman in it. I think that there.
And somehow Jeb Hawkes is involved.
Yeah.
Yes.
You talk about a thing out of left field. Do you know about this, Alan?
What? The
Jeb Hawkes connection with Eve?
I'm trying to think. I know that they tried to connect him to everything at one point during.
It was really strange. They go back to 1795, and there's Jeb running around.
Yeah.
Never quite knew how that fit in the timeline.
No, I knew that connection through the supposed retconned death of Vicky, but Jeb was supposed to have done that, and therefore there would be some kind of probably connection because Peter / Jeff knew Danielle. Supposedly, which was another retconned relationship, but it makes more sense. It was just an unspoken retcon. It wasn't a complete reversal of fortune, as in the case of Vicky. But
there are times in DS it's
literally reversal of fortune there.
Yeah,
there are a lot of times in DS it's like, oh, and by the way, this happened without us knowing it.
I mean, they started sort of preparing you for this by sliding the year of 1790 whatever every time they went back.
Yeah, it changes.
Slide the year. It's I'm not sure what the logic behind that was, except that time goes forward in the past too. Maybe that was the logic. I don't know, but
here's a strange and odd question about this. So Barnabas, when we hear Barnabas first talk about what happened in the past, sort of hinting at it, he talks about he fixed Sarah's doll before she died. We don't see that happen because that timeline is different because Vicky comes back and replaces Phyllis Wick. So that's no longer in existence, or is that now a sort of like the MCU, or that's a separate time split now? Like, you know what I mean? Or is it?
Yeah.
When Barnabas goes back, is he when Natalie Dupre and Forbes are killed by Ben Stokes? Is that now a split timeline, even though it's Victoria Winters again? That's sort of a question we have to ask, because there are now multiple 1795 storylines with all these split timelines? That's my question to you guys. Sorry.
Well, I mean, the whole idea, it's never really explained, of course, but the whole idea was the concept of changing the course of history. I remember that as a kid, thinking that phrase was really cool and totally defied my hatred of physics. It made me interested in how does that work, So it was. I think that their assumption was it was the same timeline, but then you get parallel time later on. So now we know that there are separate timelines. So absolutely, you could infer these things that they split because of the meddling with time. Another sort of a more radicalized butterfly effect, where instead of just messing up everything in the current timeline, it just splits it off into something completely different.
Yeah.
So I mean, you could rationalize that, I guess, especially after the establishment of parallel time.
Yeah.
That good stuff.
Yeah. Patrick, what do you think?
Of what?
Well, are there split timelines with 1795?
Wonderfully confused and desperate on the part of the storytellers. This is not the sort of thing that I think a sane person comes up with far ahead of time as they're meticulously planning this out.
No,
I think it's non sequitur. It's just this weird thing from out of nowhere. Does that mean I don't like it? Oh no, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's hilarious. I think it is hell. It's evident of the hell's a poppin' spirit of the series at this point. It truly is a show and a universe where anything can happen. They can connect anybody they want.
Yeah.
It makes Marie Roget and Jeb, in their own ways, these weird lightning rods for fate. That they're just going to keep showing up for some reason in Collinsburg. They can't leave. I certainly think that it is a call for a future storyteller to do some serious writing about what two entities were haunting this area at that time as real people. So I think it's full of a lot, but it's full of potential. Is it ultimately a little silly? Yes. Is it, as they say, desperation is a stinky perfume? So do I catch a few tendrils? Yeah. But nothing wrong with that for me.
And future writers can bind that.
That's right.
That adhesive to something that makes sense, figuring out a way to make sense out of what was writer happenstance or necessity because we needed to tie up this little story segment or whatever. So and there is desperation and silliness involved because I can't we mentioned this before. Writing for this show must have been a marathon. It must have been exhausting.
Well, yeah, because they had nothing. They had no running encyclopedia. I think they had, Violet Wells's memory and maybe some old TV guides.
Yeah.
But unless they wanted to start reading scripts, entire scripts, to figure out where this moment was or that was, forget it. There was no record keeping like that.
And there's no time to do that. You've got to be. We've got to take this flimsy and we've got to turn it into a full script in the next 19 hours. And we also have to make frantic phone calls to each other as the writers to make sure we're not clashing with each other too badly. So yeah.
What did you guys think of the debut of Marie Wallace here?
Great, as far as I'm concerned. I think it's a really good debut episode for her. I don't think she all too often, a lot of times when you're dealing with this kind of live on tape stuff in early soap operas, the first few days you find actors that look a little lost until they get going, but she's not. She's there from the beginning. I think she, again, that benefit of having a lot of stage experience, you know, throwing yourself in front of those lights, it's a familiar sensation.
Man. Patrick, what did you think of the debut of Marie Wallace here on DS? I think she was really good. Marie Wallace, I always felt like every time she was on Dark Shadows, like she wasn't on there long enough. Like you got used to her character, and then boom, she was gone.
Right, but she was obviously reliable and popular among the powers that be, because they kept bringing her back to do something else, which was until she left for Somerset. Yeah.
Here's a question for you guys. With Professor Stokes, what do you guys think he suspects about Barnabas, if anything at all here? Because I mean, he knows about Adam. He knows, Adam's, they're creating a mate for him.
He knows he's an artificial man. He knows all about that aspect of it. He doesn't know the particulars of the involvement. He knows they were involved somehow. He knows at least that they know things he doesn't know, and at times he shrugs it off, and at other times he resents the hell out of it. I mean, he's literally told them, if it weren't for the fact that Vicky was involved, I'd be inclined to let you stew in your own juice.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty heavy blow off for somebody like Stokes, who seems, who is inclined to help, and has shown an inclination to do that.
So. It has quite a juice to stew in, I'll say that too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I do think I think he does suspect a lot of things about Barnabas, but he has no concrete proof of what he was, obviously. No. That doesn't get revealed to him until way, way, way later.
He just understands that there's an extended involvement in these things that they're not talking about, both he and so. But he also has an instinct that what's going on, for the most part, is for the better, for the greater good, if he involves himself. And I think that's why he goes along a lot of times. He rationalizes it because it's like, well, they seem to be on the side of the angels here, talking about, especially when they kind of start out collaborating on trying to defeat Angelique and doing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, and at that point, he has no doubt they're on the side of the angels. But so I think that has something to do with the fact that he tolerates most of the time that they're like hem and haw every time he asks a pointed question about what's going on.
Here's one for you guys. As basically as a babysitter or a parent, how screwed is Nicholas here? Because now he's got two life forms to contend with. If he even have.
He has these life forms to contend with, but he also has Angelique, who is not being a very good slave.
No.
She's running out on him constantly. So I think it's, the whole idea of this grand plan is doomed to failure because of the domestic problems that arise. They seem to be overwhelming of the grand scheme, at least in some cases. And I think that's where the soap opera tropes come in too. You know, the interpersonal relationships that get in the way of the bigger picture sometimes.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Like you have with Angelique being a slave and not listening to him. I mean, there's an episode where he flat out smacks Angelique for biting Barnabas.
He does. Absolutely.
It's like, God damn it, I can't take my eyes off of you. You know what I mean? Like, it's a very soap opera type move. I mean, they have them on here, but you get why it's done. But it's like, okay, really, what does that do for you? Because it doesn't mean she has to listen to you, and now you know this. So
yeah, he already knows it by then.
yeah.
Anyway. I mean, he's not dull.
Yeah, there's nothing.
He knows that she's a problem, that he has to be on her case all the time.
Yeah, there's nothing he can really do either, too. I mean, he could destroy her if he wanted to.
Right, but that, he's not. There's something. As an actor, Estrado must have had to have something in his bag of tricks in his inner life that prevents him from doing that for as long as he does, or attempting it. I mean, he punishes her, but he doesn't destroy her. You know, he destroys her corporeal being and brings her back as a vampire. He can't let her go. It's like I can't quit you. You know, it's that kind of.
He may be under orders from Diabolos.
That's possible too, especially since she is not above going down and negotiating a contract. You know, done that more.
Dropping a dime on him.
Mm-hmm.
Women.
Dudes.
Yeah. Yeah. What's you guys' favorite scene for this episode?
It's hard to tell. I mean, you know, it probably is when she's first coming live. I mean, it's not the cleverest, but it certainly is the emblematic scene that goes with this. Yeah. You know, and one of the things I really like in this is Robert Rodin finds a totally different way to say she's alive.
Yeah.
And it's a good little bit of an acting exercise, you know, in something where Colin Clive's reading is so indelible.
Yes, it's emblematic.
How do you get something new?
Right.
That matters, and I think he does.
Yep. Yep. I agree. I enjoy that scene very much. I also enjoy the establishment of Stokes as, you know, like, hold on, folks. Yeah. Here's what's happening. And he sort of, you know, I mean, authoritatively, he takes over for a while, even though everybody's going, well, what's going on? What's going on? And Adam's going, no. And he's going, yes, I'm sorry. But
his lips say no, but his eyes say yes.
Yes.
The plans of Professor Stokes.
I really like Eve up in Josette's room, and the wind's blowing, the door's blowing open. You could tell there's evil intentions coming.
Yeah, it's a nice denouement.
Yeah, it gives you that. There's so many hooks to bring you back to Dark Shadows in each episode. And they give you, okay, there's something to this Eve woman. She's got this spirit, evil woman inside her. It's not what you think it is. You've been, basically what Stokes is saying to him, you've been suckered. You've been bamboozled here.
Right.
And it's a really good hook to bring audiences
Bamboozled.
It is.
Yes.
It also mystifies the audience a little bit, like, because when, as a first-time audience member, you're looking at this and going, "Well, is she or isn't she? Is she gonna go? Is she going to go to the dark side, or is she going to not go to the dark side?" You know, because at that point, they sort of have a bit of a question about that, at least for the audience. I don't think Stokes has any question of it. I think he's like, as he says, "Destroy her now." You know, and basically he knows.
Yeah, Stokes is trying to lay down like that. Just get rid of her, destroy her, kill her, do whatever. Just don't let that woman live.
Yeah.
Which I think that's
get the lingerie.
Yeah, lingerie, and please those silk stockings. Oh, yes.
I'll have the boys in the lab take a look at those. There's nothing you need to worry about.
That's right.
Whole team at the university.
Don't touch those, Adam. Here, take these flashcards instead.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. What do you guys want to do tomorrow night? Anything? Nothing?
I have a thought. It's a movie I reference constantly. And it's not See You Next Wednesday. And unfortunately, it's not The Day the Clown Cried. I desperately wish it were. But it's a movie I wanted us to look at. It's a tender film, it's a sentimental film. It's a warm film. It's a film called Smokey and the Bandit.
Okay, I've seen it.
You sound so depressed.
No, I own it on
Smokey and the Bandit 3, Joel.
I own it.
That is Pat McCormick and drag like nobody's business.
No, I own it on 4K. So
I think it would just be a delight to finally confront together as a text, and perhaps explain why there's a good chunk of dialogue in the movie devoted to Stephen Sondheim. And there is. There's a whole Sondheim discussion. There is. When Sally Field gets in the car, she's talking about musical theater Stephen Sondheim as such. And I think that's great. And Burt Reynolds looks confused.
And he's just chewing his gum or whatnot. Yeah.
He's chewing his gum. He's a Last of Sheila fan. He didn't know that guy wrote songs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is also the movie in which Reynolds comes into his own as an A-list star. He'd done several of these kind of movies before, Gator, and a couple of other movies like that. He'd worked with Jerry Reed in Gator, actually.
He did.
Yeah,
he did.
So
there's also is a film that ties into kind of sort of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because essentially the relationship and friendship between Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio is the relationship between Hal Needham
and Burt
Reynolds, and they lived together for several years. I don't know if they lived in the house that Randolph Scott and John Wayne owned, but
he inspired him to be
I hope so.
A stuntman. So it was one.
Yeah, and so that's who Brad Pitt's character is modeled on.
Yeah. All right, so tomorrow night, Smokey and the Bandit, the first movie, we'll review it. Anything you guys want to add about this episode before we go?
It was for a totally random choice. It was a great one.
Yeah.
It was. It's actually a pivotal episode.
Yes.
And there are quite a few of them in this series, so
there are.
Good job, Julie. Anyway.
That's right. Absolutely.
Link to Patrick McCray's Dark Shadows Daybook About is going to be in the description box. Link to Alan Glenn's YouTube channel, Collins Sport After Dark, is going to be in the description box. You guys have a great night. Be safe. Bye.
Take care. Bye.